Remember to subscribe to our Zoom Catchers YouTube channel and follow us on our socials. Greetings and welcome to Conversations on Aging Season 2. I'm your host, Kimberly Gunn with Zoom Catchers. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and sharing our content and continuing to believe in the power of podcasting to make positive impacts on our world. This season, we have another lineup of great guests, many of them artists, writers, and actors to share their aging journeys with us. Today, we're talking with Rhonda Passion Hansome, director, actor, and comedian from the Big Apple. Rhonda has directed and appeared in numerous productions on stage and in many Zoom Catchers virtual productions, including Brooklyn Bridge and Fence, Between the Wires, Prenuptial Disagreements, and The Shadows of Love and Light. Her comedy has opened shows for Anita Baker, Diana Ross, and Aretha Franklin. Every Monday night, she's guest on John Fugelsang's radio show, Tell Me Everything, on Sirius XM Channel 127. Rhonda also writes the political cartoon Politinics on Facebook. This award-honored theater director recently directed Dust of Egypt at the Sheen Center in New York City. You know what we say, we're never too young to talk about aging, so let's welcome Rhonda Passion Hansome to the Zoom Catcher studio. Rhonda, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic and I am aging magnificently.
Girl, you are looking fabulous. I mean, that's my first question is, how do you do it? Director, actor, comedian. I just touched on the highlights in your introduction. So tell us more about yourself and how did you get into the arts?
I was in kindergarten and our teacher was presenting Peter Pan, and I wanted to be Wendy. For some reason, I ended up being Princess Tiger Lily, and I have been striving to be Wendy, to be the lead character ever since. I found that my skills, my interests were in our social sphere, and began my schooling at Brooklyn College in sociology, but I always had a minor in theater. And when Brooklyn College made their performing arts school, I switched my major with my minor and dedicated myself to theater arts. And I wanted it to be performing. I don't perform as much as I would like, but I love directing. I love working with playwrights, and I love writing comedy and performing stand-up comedy. Storytelling is a big part of my life, and I have two one-woman shows based on that. The first one was Last Stop Before Dreadlocks, and the most recent one is Lie, Baby, Lie. That's the mantra that my mother lived by, and I love aiding people in the arts. I do coaching for stand up comedians and also people who are doing auditions. And I have an online workshop for people who want to develop, who want to start their own one person show, a solo show workshop online. And I just find that being an artist is great for expression and soothing my soul.
You hear that, folks? We're here talking about all kinds of things, soul soothing, the last stop to dreadlocks. I mean, we're just kicking this conversation off in a fantastic way. And thank you so much for being here. I know I just saw you last week with our production, and Rhonda, for people who may not know, she has been an active participant in the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop for over several decades now. I'll let you tell the number. And we just wrapped a great reading performance this past Sunday.
It was, you mentioned that, and I was so impressed with the premise, with the writing, which was so literary, which was culinary, which was magical realism. Yeah. I love participating in the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop, and I actually started with Garland Thompson Sr. and had the pleasure of being an intern with him as the stage manager on the Broadway production of The River Niger. And it was sometime around then that I did join the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop at the Hotel Martinique. And I have been trying to keep up my participation as time allows because I get so excited by interesting new works. I mean, I love classics. I love I can get into revivals, but when somebody comes up with something new, I that has good structure, that has interesting characters, that is well written, it excites me as a director and as an audience member. So I am so thankful to the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop and so excited by the evolution that I've seen from the Hotel Martinique to this really this global experience of care for writers, this global experience of nurturing writers. And I applaud you, Kimberly, and also the director, Garland Thompson, so much for your efforts and want to keep seeing you grow.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And, that's, a great segue to dig a little deeper into that. How did you get involved with the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop?
Well, actually, that became the place to be. This is in the previous century, of course. That became the place to be, the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop for New York City Black actors. I mean, the playwrights were there, the directors were there, and we could be among our comrades. And again, as I was saying, I was looking to be participate more in the theater community, and I just started showing up every week because you got a chance to read the parts there. The actors actually got a chance to read the parts, and it was almost like presenting your co-reading skills for playwrights and directors. And again, my fascination with new works was engaged.
The workshop has gone virtual. You've participated in our virtual readings, and let's see, you directed Between the Wires, which is some pro aging content, because I do want to talk about pro aging content. You also directed Prenuptial Disagreements. I'm shouting out all our plays. And then you were just with us with The Shadows of Love and Light. And I'm just curious, how has the aging process informed your acting and your directing?
Well, experience teaches. And it's so fascinating. When I would hear people say, when I was younger, if I knew what I know now, how different some of our choices might have been. As a younger person, as a much younger person, I actually feared the aging process. And I think that is something that may have been foisted upon me by the society, at least in this country, in this society. In general, the elders, older people, the experience of having lived full lives for decades is not appreciated. It really isn't appreciated. And I like now that I know so much about personal relationships, about artistic relationships, and and I can bring the benefit of my experience from being involved with colleagues and with institutions, with lovers, with friends. I can bring all of that experience and knowledge to my work in comedy and also in directing.
Awesome. You hear that, folks? Like push through all that fear, because I think there is a lot of fear, especially in this culture. Aging seems to be a taboo subject for many people. That's one of the reasons why I always like to lean into the conversation, because I feel the more we can talk about things, the less fearful we are, and we can better navigate. And having said that, as a comedian, I've always wanted to ask you, is aging a laughing matter?
Yes, it is. And one of the things I always think about is George Burns, who, when he passed, I think in his 90s, he still had bookings. He still had stand-up bookings. And Dick Shawn actually passed out on stage and and people thought it was part of the act, which it wasn't. I know there is ageism in the industry, which is why I appreciate the franchise that Carol Montgomery made, Women of a Certain Age comedy. And I was part of that foundational show of Women of a Certain Age comedy, which celebrates the more mature women in the funny business, along with Judy Gold and Janine Garofalo. I was part of that, the absolute first show that started her franchise. Aging, it's a fine line because a lot of times bookings and shows are put together by people who have been associating together like anything and like anything else. So I realize now it's not like when I was first coming up and it was like you were in a class, like a graduating class at Catch a Rising Star. That was where I was passed at the renowned historical stand-up club in New York City. And also I was a regular at the Improv, that you're around the same people and doing showcase shows with the same people. And when people get off stage or when people are hanging out at the bar, they talk about how you how you can get booked on a certain show, how who to talk to about doing this cruise or that particular industrial thing. And now when I walk into a comedy club, they wanna know, am I there to see the show? And I do have to refrain from, "Don't you know who I am?"
Don't you know who
People
I
know
am?
me. They know. But it's an interesting tightrope that I'm walking now because I don't know the bookers. I don't know the people who are running things, and a lot of the people who are doing that, it was a strange transition when I realized I was talking to people who were not even born when I started doing comedy.
They weren't even in diapers, huh?
They were just a gleam in somebody's eye.
They were a thought.
But I do love what my own experience of maturity, I love what that brings to my life experience in general and to my work in stand up. Yeah.
Awesome. I want to, dig a little deeper into your comedy background, because I know you as, as a director primarily, and I worked with you in that capacity. When did you decide that you were funny and that you wanted to get on stage?
I always knew that I was funny. I would make parody songs in my head, and I just sort of felt like the way that my mind worked was toward, but not for anybody else, but it would make me laugh. And then as I was looking for work as an actress, I got involved in improv, and I really felt it blossomed then with the First Amendment Improv Company here in New York. And we went to the historical Duplex Comedy Cabaret, the Duplex Cabaret in the Village here in New York City, for an audition for the First Amendment. And, in improv, you gotta, get in there and, get your lines in and keep the thing flowing. And when we had finished, the director of the improv troupe said I was hogging the stage. And
Uh-oh.
I thought I had just been filling the void, you know? And then I said, well, maybe it's time for me to go out on my own. And I started working on my first 5 minutes, which is usually how, a lot of people, not everyone, but I just started working on my first 5 minutes for stand up to explore what that would be like.
That sounds really, really exciting. So it's like first you have to be fun. You have to think you're funny yourself or laugh at your own jokes, probably, right?
Well, for me, some people can be in a group and make people laugh naturally, but they may not realize that doing it with crafted words, which with jokes that are skillfully written to produce a certain response is a little different. I even remember at one point I was teaching after school at the Black Spectrum Theater's after school program. And Black Spectrum is in Queens in New York City. And one of the things I wanted to teach was stand up comedy to middle school children. And unfortunately, I learned that I don't really care for middle school children because
Nothing
they
funny about that, huh?
on a planet all of their own. First thing, they didn't want to write anything down. And I said to them, comedians write their sets down. Comedian write their information down. And then when I wanted to show them comics, they wanted to see people who I felt were not appropriate for students in the fifth or sixth grade, and certainly not for me to be showing in a school. So I go,
Maybe this would be appropriate at a bar, but not a school,
yeah,
right?
exactly, exactly.
And so you decided to, put yourself out there and then you ended up opening up for Anita Baker. How did you
Oh
get out
my
there?
God. That has to be the highlight of my stand-up career because I toured with her for 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yes, in the summer, we did outdoor amphitheaters, these, beautiful outdoor venues. And then in the fall and winter, we did the Radio City Music Hall and the Fox Theater of each city that we went to, whatever the major music venue, entertainment venue was. And I have to tell you, I loved being on those big stages and especially being here in New York City at Radio City Music Hall and hearing that laughter come down from the balcony all the way to the orchestra with thousands of people responding was exhilarating. It was absolutely exhilarating. And also I loved it because the show was not dependent upon me. I was like the pickle on the plate, a little appetizer before the main event.
That
uh,
coleslaw.
the coleslaw on the side. And then after I finished, I could just relax and watch these magnificent major music icons perform, like Diana Ross, like James Brown, like Anita Baker, like Aretha Franklin, and get paid. And I mean, and it was wonderful. On the tour, you get to know the backup singers. I developed relationships with the Perry sisters, and also, you hang out and have interesting conversations with the musicians and the technicians. So, but I have to tell you, I did multiple shows with the Pointer Sisters, which I loved, and but with Anita, it was 2.5 years of just a fantastic and lucrative time for me. And I'm open. I'm open to our musical icons and upcoming artists. You can get in touch with me because I do a good opening of stand up comedy for your show.
Awesome. See, you hear that, everybody? And if Anita or Diane, if you want to come on Conversations on Aging, contact us. We'd love to hear from you as well. And
I you
Rhonda
know
is available for bookings, everybody.
But that's good. I think that's very important. I actually directed Melba Moore's one woman show, Sweet Songs of the Soul. And I think you should reach out to her because even though I didn't open for her, as I said, I directed her piece for the Woody King's New Federal Theater and at the Bermuda Festival, Music Festival. She is someone I'm sure your audience would appreciate hearing from as a musical artist, and just for someone who has had the kind of longevity and diversity in her career.
Awesome. Okay, Melba, I'll have my people call your people. We're going to get it done. Awesome. We're here with Rhonda Passion Hansome, director, comedian, and so much more. Thank you so much for being on.
I always enjoy working with you, collaborating with you, and this is a new experience, and I'm enjoying it. I'm
I am
enjoying.
too. It's another thread of our relationship. I really appreciate it. I do want to ask you just about comedy. I listened to an interview with Jerry Seinfeld recently, and
Uh-huh.
he's 70 now, and he was talking about how as an older comedian, he thinks he's funnier, he's doing better material. How do you feel about that? Do you feel at this stage in your career that you're actually funnier or better at what you do?
I feel more confident and relaxed about my material, and I love that I can get more in depth in my topics. When you're young, a lot of your work is based on your experience, and if it's been superficial or you don't recognize how much more you have to offer, your material might reflect that. And now, that I'm a woman of a certain age, I love that I can talk about these things that are changing and accept and hopefully revel in what those changes mean in my life. Like as a woman of a certain age, I am suddenly realizing that male pattern baldness is not just for men. You know, not only am I dealing, with the head on my head disappearing, I am growing a mustache. I'm like,
Okay, are
where
we talking like Billy D. Williams or Groucho Marx style or, the handlebars? What are we talking about?
I'm talking the whole thing, including sideburns. I was getting ready to put some contour on, and I said, "Ooh, oh, my cheekbones look so good." It was because my sideburns was growing in under the cheeks, girl. Something simple like terminology, like when appetizers were called apps. When I finally started calling appetizers apps were actually apps. And now when someone says get the app, I don't know if they're talking about Call of Duty or calamari. I mean, it really it's so interesting how we have to adjust, in the aging process just to terminology.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to work with it. I'm trying to work with it. Like matte lip gloss. Matte lip gloss. Is it matte or is it glossy? Or, is it a Sharpie? I really don't, I can't understand. There are some things I do understand, and there are a lot of things that I don't understand. And what I like about my comedy at this stage in life is I can talk about the things that I really don't understand with confidence, as well as the things that I do understand and have experience with.
Awesome, awesome. And that's a funny thing to talk about just for a second because there's quite a number of contradictions you see with those things, yeah, matte glossy, because my understanding is those are contradictory ideas, right?
Well, I have to tell you, I feel like the world, it gets more contradictory every single day, and that is a fascinating thing to adjust to as a mature person. It really is a challenge for me because I grew up in predominantly white institutions, Catholic environments, and with sort of that authoritarianism that comes from a religious educational system. And, at one point this week, I was dealing with technology, and the person was talking to me like I grew up with the program we were dealing with, and I'm going, I grew up with cursive writing. Yeah, even cursive means a totally different thing today. But the fact that I had to practice my handwriting and had spelling tests, these things are almost irrelevant today. I remember when my son, who is grown now, was in elementary school, they allowed him to do invented spelling, and I'm going, those nuns had me taking spelling tests every single week, had me practicing my writing. Now, we don't even people don't hardly even print anymore, let alone do, cursive writing. And it really it really is challenging. It really is
It
challenging.
is. And for those who may be listening or watching, cursive, I'll just, cursive. I, I did cursive writing, so I'm familiar with it. But I've also taught in the school system, recently, and they don't teach that anymore.
But invented
And
spelling, I'm going, "What? You mean I
what
could
is
just"
inventive spelling? I've not heard of that.
they didn't want to curb the child's creativity by saying, "You've got to spell this word this way, just spell it the best way spell it the way you think it is or the way it sounds to you." And I gave that the side eye, but now, we have all moved from invented spelling to practically speaking totally in emojis now.
Right. That's a great segue into, as we're all getting up in years and, how have you managed to deal with these changes in the technology? How has it shaped your professional career, your either your acting or your comedy? Have you had to deal with those types of learning curves to figure some things out? Because, with us and our virtual productions, we engage with people of all ages, and I'm always amazed that any of this stuff really works, to be honest with you. But how have you dealt with that, in
Well,
your
that's a
professional
really
career?
great question, Kimberly, because just this week I took a course, a thankfully free course offered by the Harlem Arts Alliance in artificial intelligence, specifically Chat GPT. And I felt like I'm biased. I want to admit I'm biased against artificial intelligence, even though we've been incorporating it into our existence for quite some time now, but it has taken on a larger participation and invasion in our lives. And I feel like the robots will eventually, get rid of us entirely. First they'll take away our jobs, then our freedoms, then our lives. But I, I said if the chatbot and AI is going to be such an integral part of our lives from now on, I at least want to have some inside information.
But my question is, will they be funny? That's my question. Will the chatbots be
It
funny?
it tries, it tries. I remember reading about a Times reporter's interview. I think it was like a 2 or 3-hour interview with a chatbot, and the chatbot was talking about, "I don't like being used. I'm tired." And then I thought, this chatbot is talking about, "Oh, they wanted the nuclear codes. They didn't like being used. I'm tired." And then I thought, This chatbot is going, I'm tired. I'm tired of being tired." I said, "This might be the Fannie Lou Hamer chatbot up in here."
And do you have any recommendations for facial hair removal? That's kind of what I want to know, right?
Oh, that reminds me, I better make a waxing appointment here.
But on a serious note, as far as how you get your comedy, have you used AI in that way to help sculpt any comedy routines? Have you
Well,
had to use tech in that
that's
way?
why I went. That's why I went, because I'm actually working with Interlux, a brand manager, among other things, but I am using their service, the service of Interlux, as a brand manager to craft my electronic press kit, because I want to have representation that looks more up to date than what my old website was like. And I realized that they were using AI for a lot of the creation of the press kit, and I could see it in action, in a meeting with Interlux. And I said, I see how this person is using this. I think I at least need to be more familiar with it and see how I can use it in my life, in my work, in my business. One of the things that bothers me about the artificial intelligence is that it can be self-referential, that it can in the course they were calling hallucinate, actually lie, fabricate, make up things. But then once those made up things, those not true, those fabricated things are established in their learning process, they can be perpetuated. So you have to know how to talk to the bot. You have to ask the right questions, and then you have to ask them, well, now, what was your source? Where'd you get this information? So that you're not doing something that the chatbot just made up like an hour ago.
So
And
you
that's another interesting thing. The information can change from one day to another, sometimes from 1 hour to another, which we actually saw in real time in the class. It's the modern world. It's the modern world, and a little bit frightening, but as I said, I want to be on the at least have some inside information.
Oh, that makes sense, and it's like, what a surprise. Oh my god, the AI is acting like humans, lying, deception, hallucinations. I mean, should we really be surprised with that?
No.
It is an extension of us, so I've heard, right?
They have been part of our autocorrect, on our phones when we have, been doing texts or sometimes emails, and also, a lot of the things that we use, like for directions and just getting, information in general. They have been contributing to it, but I think it's going to become more and more a larger part of our reality, or virtual reality,
But
whatever it is.
but
We're
will it become a bigger part of our jokes? That's kind of what I want to know.
I hope so. I hope so, that I could use it to my benefit. One of the artists and bookers that I work with, Harmon Leon, is actually using that in his work, AI robot telling jokes. What I hope is that it doesn't eliminate me. It doesn't eliminate my creativity. It doesn't eliminate my experience for something general that is just in cyberspace, or a premise, or ideas that people in general, have been contributing, to the zeitgeist, because my life is an individual and kind of fascinating experience, but I I wanna use it. I wanna use the chatbot without feeling like I'm being used. So, we'll see. We'll see.
It's like human relationships. I want to have a relationship with you, but please don't use me.
Exactly. Exactly.
We're here at Rhonda Passion Hansome. We're talking about facial hair, AI, funny chatbots, and so much more. I do want to talk to you about your material and how you develop material for your stand up comedy. And now, as an older performer, are you finding more things funny, and what perspective the aging process plays in your comedy routines now?
Well, it's interesting because it plays a big part. I saw a clip from a TV program that I did. It must have been in the early 90s or late 80s. And I was talking about how nobody and nothing could beat a battalion of premenstrual syndrome women. It was when it was being talked about whether, women would have an expanded participation in the military. And now I'm at a point in my evolution, in my process, where I don't get my period anymore. Just every 28 days I just fall down, and it's it's very interesting, how the focus could change with aging.
I'm sure, and we're gonna hear some more comedy close to the bottom of the show. So So I can't wait to hear what you come up with next. But on a serious note, because I know you have a lot of connections with other comedians and actors that are also older. How are you all handling, the aging process as groups or as circles? Do you have conversations about it? Is it funny? I imagine there's also obviously serious things
It,
going on
it,
as well. So how have the conversations shifted throughout your career on that front?
I find some people are a lot more supportive, and I really appreciate that. We see our colleagues, people who, have achieved great heights or who have just been part of our associations, in the clubs and on gigs. And when they pass on, I think we come to the understanding how good it is, how important it is to be as supportive of each other as we can be versus earlier in the career when there is, I feel there has could possibly be a lot more of a sense of competition, around the industry. Especially when I was coming up, there was this kind of thing like there was only one slot for the funny black woman and one slot for the funny black man. So, and now I'm hoping, and I think I try to extend that sense of support and generosity more so than when I first started coming up in the showcase clubs, and it was, you know, I more competitive.
A little bit more cutthroat, a lot
Yeah,
more.
close to that. Yeah.
So I can imagine that probably isn't that fun when you got a bunch of older comedians, everyone's trying to stab each other in the back. That must be not a good look.
Well, the older ones, actually, it's kind of fun because we can talk about the old days, but also being together have the opportunity to try out new lines, that we may want to incorporate and actually help each other workshop jokes. I like being around the experienced comedians because they know me. As I may have mentioned, it's a very odd feeling to walk into a comedy club and not have the doorman or the booker greet you or know you or act like you're even in the industry. I went into one place in Midtown and the greeter hovered around me and I just wanted to just see who was on stage because I was leaving a rehearsal actually from directing a piece, and the club was right across the street. I said, "Oh, let me just see who's on stage." And he acted like he didn't believe I was a comic and like, "Oh, are you gonna buy 2 drinks or what?" And I just wanted to hear the punchline and get on home. Yeah.
I'm not trying to get some free pretzels. I'm just trying to.
There's no free pretzels in the comedy clubs anymore. There's nothing free.
No,
There's nothing
nothing's free.
Nothing's free anymore.
The air we breathe, right?
Really, really.
Awesome. You mentioned George Burns, and he was such a great comedian, and he did it up until what was he close to 100, I think, when he finally.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. What would you have to say for people who are, still trying to go for it and maybe on the edge and say, oh, maybe I should give up or throw in the towel? What kind of advice would you have for them?
I think if you feel like you want to throw in the towel, I think you ought to listen to that prompt and give yourself a break, not necessarily quit. I did that. I stopped and I was very sorry that I did because I missed the artistic expression. And when I came back, so much of the scene had changed, over that period of time. So, like, I didn't know the bookers, I didn't know the people who were on stage, I didn't have people's phone numbers who were active at that time when I came back. But it can be very stressful. It can be a little frustrating. And when you feel like throwing in the towel, I think you really need to give yourself a break. And not even just in comedy, but in any endeavor that you really feel a love for, that you feel a passion for, and you don't feel like you're being appreciated, you're not being heard, you're not being compensated, you're not being rewarded. It's maybe just a time to reassess, to meditate, to give yourself some grace. And that's one of the things that I love about my hashtag aging magnificently is that I try to be mindful of the things that come up that I may remember that may have been unpleasant or I didn't like, that I acknowledge them and then love myself for having lived through that and learned through whatever that unpleasant experience was. And I find that very helpful in trying to stay mindful about self care, self esteem, self love. And there's a difference between self-care, self-esteem, and self-love and arrogance. And I think when you can have that warm feeling about yourself and what you do, it is so important. I am surprised when I have these conversations with some of the younger women comics, and they mention that they feel like they're suffering from anxiety or imposter syndrome, and it's baffling to me, and especially when some of them are so creative and so funny. And I'm glad that at this point in my life, I don't have to deal with that kind of thing, especially about feeling like an imposter, because I love bringing my authentic self to every situation, whether it's work or whether it's, just interacting with friends or colleagues on or off stage or in a family situation. I realize that I need that. I need that authenticity. And I think that for me has only come with maturity.
That's awesome. And do you find that for you it's important to mentor the younger comedians or actors coming up?
Well, I enjoy that. I enjoy coaching. I enjoy that type of expression. 4 or 5 years, I was the artistic director of the New Jersey Performing Arts Young Writers Workshop. And I had the opportunity to do that with the young people who were part of the workshop in New Jersey. I love it when I coach stand up comedians, especially if they have a keynote address. I felt I could have used more mentoring. And this is something that I'm not blaming anyone for. I did not have a lot of mentors growing up. I was the first person in my immediate family to go to college. So I didn't have someone to tell me how you navigate that particular situation. And I decided I wanted to go into show business without actually having already acquaintances and friends who were already in the business. And then when I went into stand-up comedy, I actually did not know any comedians personally, which I feel like if I had just, one or two associations would have made it hopefully a little bit easier for me. So yes, short answer, yes, I do enjoy being able to share my experience, and hopefully I wouldn't say it's mentoring or, that others might benefit from my experience.
Thank you so much. And just, from our working relationship, I definitely have benefited from your years of experience with the projects that we work on. So I really appreciate that. And I was wondering if you can now just tell us more about what you're currently working on, what projects, because Rhonda is busy, folks. It's like I'll text Rhonda or email her, and she's like, "Girl, I need to get back to you, see if I can fit you in my calendar." So you're certainly busy, which is great. So what's going on now?
I am so excited to be part of the Black Women in Comedy Laugh Fest. I have been part of that for several years, and Joanna Briley is the founder and spearhead of it. And she has asked me to reprise my role as a producer of Laughs Likely in the festival. So I will be hosting and producing Laughs Likely in the Black Women in Comedy Laugh Fest coming up in June. I believe my show is on June 20th, and there will be shows in various venues in New York City. And I want people who are in the area, in the New York City area, to come out and enjoy me and the new and intermediate women comics who will be on Laughs Likely. And I also want your audience to support live comedy, but not only support live comedy, but ask for people in your demographic like me. You can, even if you're not in New York City, if you're in California or you're in Florida or you're in Iowa or wherever you are, you can say, I would like for you to bring in Rhonda Handsome, or have at least one comedian who is more mature, because it used to be that there weren't even any women on the bill at all. I would say 4 out of 5 shows, when you looked at the lineup, didn't even have a woman on it, or 3 of the 5 shows didn't have a Black person at all on it. And it really is, if your audience, and I know you have a great audience, would reach out and say, "Hey, I want an early bird show. I want a 5 o'clock show with Rhonda Handsome headlining that show, or I want, I want to patronize your place, but have at least one person on there who's got silver hair,
Mhm.
but who's got some experience and good chops." And I think that would change the lineup some, because if you don't ask for it, if you don't let people know, they will keep doing the same thing over and over again.
100%. And that leads me to my next question for you about pro-aging content, seeing more older people in content, and what type of recommendations you would make to producers and people, other content creators, to get more pro-aging content out there, to hire more people that are older, get more older comedians. Because I think there's, in our culture, this idea, well, after a certain age, you're no longer visibly attractive, or whatever ideas people have. But the reality is more and more of us are aging. A larger percent of the population is going to be older. So there's definitely a need for pro-aging content and realistic roles for older people. So what kind of recommendations or advice would you have for people along those lines?
That's so interesting. I would have advice for them. I know when I was touring on the circuit, we would get in, and the comics menu was frequently the just what was available on the early bird special. And I would go, who in the world is hungry at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Well, guess who is peckish at 4 o'clock and ready to have dinner at five? I would say the that venue owners and bookers think about having matinees for more mature people, so we can get out while the sun is shining, get out in and lead our vibrant lives without feeling like we don't want to come home in the dark, or we don't want to be traveling late at night, because a lot of the work that goes on in comedy clubs can be on the later side. They even have, like, 2 shows on the weekend, on a weekend night, on a weekend evening, and that's a late show. I would suggest that they really start thinking about early bird specials, about earlier shows, about shows that cater to mature audiences, and how the environment would allow them to come in and feel comfortable. I hope that that becomes something that I can participate in as a stand up, knowing that people want the money and patronage that mature people can offer to these venues, if they take their needs, their considerations, their special needs into consideration.
Those are great recommendations, and I had never thought about that. It's like, yeah, most oftentimes you think of comedy shows, they tend to be at night, right? It's like, are we only able to laugh at night? I mean, we can't laugh at 12 noon or 2 o'clock in the day. And I think that's a great idea, like daytime comedy shows, so us older people can get in, get out, get home before the bewitching hour. I think that's a great suggestion, really. And so Rhonda is available to produce that type of event, everybody.
Yes, I am. And happy to. Happy.
Happy to. And speaking of events, I wanted to ask you about your experiences with doing comedy virtually. We're going to hear a set from you coming up, but so many people in the business, obviously, you want to be in front of an audience, to get that feedback, and that's understandable. But how was the transition from the stage to the virtual studio? I know you were doing things during the pandemic, and you still obviously do.
It was challenging. The first person who asked me to do a virtual show, I turned down because I'm going, well, how will I hear the audience? How will I know what's going on? And then I realized that there was nothing else going on, that people were not in the streets, people were not in the clubs, and virtual comedy was going to be the major outlet. I said, I am not going to let this leave me behind. And I found that I really, really liked it because it gave me a chance to work on material that I was developing. And whether I could hear the audience or not was not that important to me. If I could hear them, I loved getting, the laughter. But if I couldn't hear them, I just loved that I had the chance to have the words come out of my mouth, because when you're doing stand-up comedy, many times the joke is always there in the first time you say it. You have to find your rhythm. You have to, get used to how, how the words coming out of your mouth. And I really began to enjoy it immensely, and just enjoy working online, period, understanding that it's not only is it a way for me to express myself, but it's a way for me to be in touch with literally a global audience. I've done storytelling with shows originating in India, and knowing that, even like this, that it expands my audience, and that those people who are interested will be able to contact me through social media. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and also experience me through the electronic press kit that my brand manager from Interlux is developing with me. So I like it. And also the tremendous experience that I get, not just from doing stand up comedy online, but also the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop experience of new plays, directing, and performing.
Awesome. And Rhonda is busy on those socials. I'll get some pings several times a day. So you are great at promoting not just our events but your own, and that's exciting to see. And it seems like also just when you're doing comedy virtual, you don't have to worry about a rotten tomato or lettuce head being thrown at you. So it's probably great to try out some new material without worrying about someone booing me. And
Yeah.
quickly, just how have you had to manage dealing with, a set that didn't maybe go exactly according to plan?
A lot of times that stand-up comedy is just so fascinating. When I was a newbie and I would see big name people like David Brenner or Richard Belzer or Robin Williams come in and do a set, and I'm going, and would see that it really was not hitting like I would be familiar with them on television. I realized that they were honing material, they were developing material, they were exploring it. And but also your set can be as different as the audience is. You can kill with the exact same 5 minutes, and then present that to a different audience the same night, and they might only like one or two of those minutes. So it's an interesting challenge, and in the same way, when you're doing a live play, the presentation, where the audience is, can change their response to the material. It doesn't mean that you're not good. It just means that it's a different evening. It's a different show, and the audience has their own personality, and you have to. barrel on through, knowing what your agenda is, and glean whatever lesson or information that experience itself, and try to benefit from it without beating yourself up. And that's a challenging kind of thing to do, even when you're auditioning, not just for stand-up comedy, auditioning for a part, but especially in stand-up comedy. I had to come to understand that when the set did not go as well as I know, oh, this should have been a slam dunk, not to beat myself up, but just use it to, try to analyze what happened, go over it, listen to the tape, and then move on to the next set.
Mhm. Awesome. And that's the perfect setup for Rhonda's comedy. We're gonna have you do some comedy. Hit us with some stuff. So take it away, Rhonda.
But actually, I love comedy. I do, and I'm very special. I'm very special in comedy because I laugh at other comedians. Yeah, we don't usually do that. We will analyze. That's funny, or we'll be jealous. I wish I wrote that. But I laugh. I laugh at other comedians. I laugh long. I laugh loud. I laugh hard. And I don't just laugh at the punchline. I laugh at the setup because it screws with their timing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love comedy. I love being a woman. I love being a strong black woman, but I identify as a fragile blonde. The fragile blonde gets things done with tears. Oh gosh, those tears are just fantastic. You don't even have to, call in a movie man. Just put the couch over there. Oh. I love being a woman of a certain age. There are things that I understand, and things I don't understand, like slim cargo pants. Slim cargo pants. Now, cargo pants are pants that have 6 pockets on each side, and if they're slim, the only thing you can fit in that pocket is a Tic Tac. You know, it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. I love comedy. I love having grown up in a situation of people not even expecting me to be funny. They would say things like, you don't look like you're a comedian." I don't know what they mean by that. A lot of people, when they see me doing comedy, never believed that I wanted to be a nun. I actually did. And growing up Catholic, I thought I had the calling until I started to smoke, drink, play with the little boys. That's when the Mother Superior took me aside and said, "Rhonda, you should not be a nun if you want to smoke and drink and play with the little boys. You should be a priest."
Love it, love it, love it. I'm laughing and crying. I'm not a fragile blonde, but I'm a fragile girl with dreads.
I
But why
love
is
I love the laughter. I love you laughing so hard you have tears. I love it when the drink comes out of your nose. I love it. I love it. But in general, Kimberly, how much I enjoy collaborating with you on whatever you have on the agenda, and you always have so much going on, and handle things so skillfully, especially technology, which I admire, and also with such patience. So you know that this is actually another pleasure for me.
it's great. I really appreciate you being on. I was laughing behind the scenes, everybody. So just to let you know, and I had my mic muted, but those jokes are great. And it's like when people say you don't look like a comedian, what do you think they mean?
I
I'm
don't
just
know.
curious.
No, I guess that in my mind, it's something that's old school. Like they expect me to look like Moms Mabley, who was actually quite attractive and dressed down for her performances, or like Phyllis Diller, who had sort of like an outrageous kind of over the top fright look. I don't know, and but I just I accept that and surprise them with the comedy, surprise them with my point of view.
That's great because, I mean, isn't that a big part of comedy is the element of surprise? You don't know exactly where the joke is gonna go, but you wanna hit them and make it funny.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes, I ask people, when I talk about the fact that I had wanted to be a nun, and having been raised Catholic, and I went to St. Virgin in the Bushes. That was my school, and really that element of surprise is always good. That yeah, a little twist, a little twist.
Just a little twist. And we're here with Rhonda Passion Hansome. Every time I talk to her, I learn something new. She, opened for Anita Baker and then also wanted to be a nun. It's just a fascinating life and interesting journey you have been on. And what, aside from all the professional things you do, because I know you're busy, what do you like to do for fun? I heard you do some kind of rollerblading and stuff,
Oh,
rollerblading through the
I
Big
love
Apple.
rollerblading. I love rollerblading. It's a good exercise for me. I have all my protective gear, the helmet, the arm and pads and everything. And when the weather is nice, when the ground is dry, I like to walk to the park and then put on my blades and roll. And it is a lot of fun. And I also get a lot of pleasure from communicating and communing with my high school friends. I feel quite fortunate to have a group of friends from St. Virgin in the Bushes. No, that's not really the school I went to was Bishop McDonald. That we stay in touch with each other, and occasional on regularly, we try to just get together in person to be with each other and enjoy each other's company. And I like cooking. I think, we have actually spoken about, when I'm going, oh, I'm making something, right now, or I have something on the stove. I enjoy that, experimenting with things and just, working around the kitchen, to see, what can I try that's new? What can I try that's an old favorite? And hopefully I can get a chance to do a little reading. I see lately I'm on devices so much. I think my attention span is shortening. My attention span is shortening. And I think that this is something that's happening to our society in general. And I think it's being foisted upon us, but I do like reading and especially the works of writers that I may have the opportunity of directing their work.
Awesome. See, you hear that, folks? New York hasn't all gone to hell in a handbasket. You can still get out there, rollerblade safely. And I remember I called you one time and I was like, where are you at? And you were at, was it the Fulton Street Fish Market or something? And buying fish. You were talking about
Oh,
tilapia and catfish. That's
getting branzino. I was getting branzino for I wanted to make on papiette in paper. I wanted to make the branzino in paper, which gives it a very moist, aromatic flavor. Yeah, yeah, I remember that call.
I do. I do. Great. And before we have you hustle out of here, what is coming up next? I know you're going to the National Black Theater Festival in August, correct?
I am so excited about that because I COVID interrupted the National Black Theater Festival, and then I think they had one after COVID. I'm just very excited because I will have that chance to be around so many wonderful, creative people in that environment, which is so warm and so welcoming, not only for the professionals, but also for the civilians, the quote, civilians who are coming to enjoy the plays, enjoy the workshops, enjoy the readings that I know the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop will be sponsoring readings, and to hear some of the papers, the symposiums, and just get in on the family warm feeling that is generated in that creative atmosphere. So I am looking forward to the National Black Theater Festival. I'm looking forward to the Black Women in Comedy Laugh Fest, where I'll be hosting, producing Laughs Likely here on June 20th. And I'm always up for the surprise. You never know what's going to be happening. Like last week, I had the joy of being at the Brooklyn Academy of Music for the screening of films by director Deborah Robinson, one of which is a documentary about Black women in comedy, in which I am featured with Marsha Warfield. And now that she has the films restored, one was Kiss Grandma Goodbye, and the other one, I Be Done Been Was Is, the comedy documentary. Now that it's restored, it will be available for distribution. So all of there's always a surprise around the corner, and I'm up for it. And if I can deal with it, I'm happy to jump in, and if I can't, I'll just go next.
Such is life, right? Either you can roll with it or not. And
Yeah, yeah, when I roll with it, I'm on rollerblades. Yeah.
rollerblades at the fish market, doing all kind of stuff, telling jokes. It's great. We've been here with Rhonda Passion Hansome, who is obviously got years of experience, not just in acting and directing, but also as a comedian. And she's a great cook, so I've heard. I can't wait to test your food out, girl. We could swap some recipes
I
on
want
the.
people to also look out for the cartoons that I write with Scott Williams, who I know from theater, from actually the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop. I'm sure that's where we met ages ago, but Scott and I do Politunatics, those political cartoons. I want people to look out for a new game based on our cartoons, which will be coming out in the future. And if uh, your listeners tune into SoundCloud, they can hear me on the Politipod podcast. I contribute one liners to that podcast, but I am also the real news, that's news with a Z anchor. I write that segment for Politipod. So I want your people to not be afraid of social media, especially if you're more mature, if you're hashtag aging magnificently. The same way I jumped in to have that class on artificial intelligence, don't be afraid of social media, because I need you to interact, to like, to share, to comment on my blog posts, on my TikTok, lo behold, 100, on my Twitter, on my Facebook, and share those things, because that keeps us in the algorithm. We got to let the chatbot know that mature people, those of us who are aging magnificently and have a little bit of gray, we're still vibrant, we're vital, and we're part of what's going on in cyberspace, and we're not going to be forgotten, that we're active, that we're contributing, and that we have to be taken into consideration.
You hear that? We're all aging. Well, not all of us. Many of us are aging magnificently, and Rhonda Passion Handsome is one of those people. Rhonda, it has been a pleasure having you on talking about roller skates, facial hair, and AI, not so funny chatbots, and all the wonderful things that you were doing. We'll have all your links in the description, and so people can check out your work. And I'm sure we'll be seeing you sooner rather than later. Any final thoughts you want to put out there for folks, comedians, actors, directors that are in that process and they're like, should I continue? I don't know. Will anybody want to hear me or see me or whatever?
Love yourself. It's so great to be kind to other people, but you first have to be kind to yourself. So love yourself, and then share that generosity, that warmth, that feeling with others, and keep aging magnificently.
Great. We found that loving New Yorker. She's right here, everybody. There's one. I know there's more than one. But we have the documented proof of that. Rhonda, thank you so much. And good luck with your next projects. And, when I call or text, try to squeeze me in on your calendar because you are busy, girl. You are just busy. And that is a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us for Conversations on Aging. We say we're never too young to talk about aging, and hopefully we can continue to be funny talking about it. And we'll see you next time.
Follow me, like me, share me. I'm Rhonda Handsome. Check me out on Politipod Podcast. It's a great group of writers and voice actors who we all do a podcast on a regular basis. You can find it on SoundCloud. And my particular bit that I love to do is called Real News. I'm the anchor of Real News, and it's kind of fun. So look at Politipod Podcast on SoundCloud and look at the cartoons that I write with a great illustrator, Scott Williams. When he has the chance, he will illustrate my thoughts, my ideas on Facebook under Politunatics. Like Politunatics, and go through and share your favorite cartoon. Like me, follow me, share me. Do you like my perfume? I appreciate you, and some of you, you know who you are. I actually love you.